I think I'm finally live. How y'all doing out there? Please chime in the chat to let me know you can see and hear me out there, because this wound up being a lot more last minute than I would have liked. It's been a very busy day, and I know that I'm usually doing this on Fridays, so I appreciate any of you all that are showing up to this. To be honest with you, that chat, pretty please. Let me know that you can all see me well out there, and that things are going according to plan. So, fun fact: we're having a heat wave in DC right now, which is not unusual. Most parts of the country are having a heat wave right now. But I cannot. I can't turn the air conditioner on while I'm doing this because there's too much background noise. So I'm going to slowly melt over the course of the coming hour as y'all watch. So yeah, be on the lookout for that. Should be a good time. I see Yoko Club studying for your finals. Jill Danskin says, hey. Yoko Club says they can hear me. Excellent. That's great to hear. Lucky coincidence that I noted the notification. Hey, huzzah. I'm glad you joined us then. People a few minutes to file in. I did want to take a second to give y'all just a brief outline of what this evening is going to look like. Basically, I'm going to do about a 30-minute lesson. It's winter here in New Zealand. It's freezing. um, well, I will. I won't lie. I will take this over freezing. I am. I'm definitely. I'm not a winter mammal, I'm afraid. So, lesson to start this off. Basically, we're going to talk about a thing that I've been playing around with a lot lately called shotguns. They're basically glowstringing tech, and spoilers. I sometimes the voice turns off. Huh? Is anybody else hearing that? Please chime in the chat if that's the case. Not sure what I can do about that though. We'll see if it fixes itself. But yeah, basically, whatchamajiggets. So I've been playing around with shotguns lately, which feels very strange saying that, living in a country where there have been several mass shootings in the past few weeks. Maybe we need to change the name of this one. I don't know, but it's glow stringing tech, and I've been finding some uses for it with poi spinning. So I'm going to share those with y'all tonight. And then the last half an hour is going to be basically just Q&A, me answering whatever questions y'all have that come to mind. Happy to teach individual concepts, to talk about flow stuff, to talk about life stuff, to share things I know and philosophies of life, if that's what you all want to hear. It's totally up to you all. To thank the sponsor of our live stream today. Thank you to UltraPoi for making it possible. Yeah, I wouldn't be doing these live streams were it not for UltraPoi. So please show them a little bit love. Head on over to ultrapoi.com, grab the poi of your choice, use the promo code DrexFactor with a 0 instead of an O. That gets you a discount, and it helps out the channel. So literally everybody wins. UltraPoi gets more people playing with their poi, get more support for the channel, and you get a very fresh set of poi. These are their Orb Poi Pros, because they kept a lot of the things that made the first generation work. The controls are super intuitive and easy to use. They made it easier to remove the capsules for charging, which that was one of my biggest problems with the previous generation. They're super bright now, and also they have these nifty ropes here with this kind of like spiral pattern on them, which I personally like because it makes them stand out a wee bit more. So yeah, check out these poi on ultrapoi.com. Thank you to UltraPoi for sponsoring this stream, and I will do another spot for them after I finish with the lesson. Looks like the audio thing is not that big a deal for some of the people watching. So I'm gonna keep on rolling then. Yeah, it is 10 past the hour, so I'm overdue for starting my lesson here. Let's dive on in, shall we? Idea from the glow stringing world. So normally when glow stringers talk about shotguns, they're talking about these really rapid wraps and unwraps that happen around your hand. Yeah. Um, so I'm not doing them exactly the way that glow stringers do. Normally, glow stringers are just bouncing them straight out and around. Like basically, this is the same kind of thing that you see when you wrap your prop around, say, like an elbow or the opposite forearm or what have you. Um, the thing that you're wrapping it around is its own hand. So in most cases, it's just supposed to be going back and forth between wrapping it one way around your hand and wrapping it the other way around your hand. The technique for this really isn't that hard either. It like just from a normal grip, you can if you're going to just do the bounce. Easiest way to do it I've found is literally just to like wrap it around the meat of your hand, like so, and then you wind up in a place where, technically speaking, you could just like catch the head in the palm of your hand, depending upon the length of your poi and the thickness of your tether. But it also means that you have enough tension built up in the tether that you can do real rapid wraps back and forth like this. Like it's supposed to be a thing that you do as you're spinning, as like one of many options that you have for wrapping and unwrapping the poi, doing direction changes. One of the other common uses for it is something called a color change, wherein after you completed the wrap, you let go of the other side. And this is where the technique that I use does not come in handy. But let's say, for the sake of argument, that I've wrapped it around my fingers as such. Notice how the coils are oriented in such a way that if I wanted to, I could let go of the handle with my thumb and let it come out. In which case, I switched which side of the prop I'm gripping. So now I'm gripping the head instead of the handle. The term for this is a color change. I'm not. This comes from the fact that generally glow stringers, well, not generally, but a lot of glow stringers like to have different colored glow sticks on either end of their tethers. A lot of this is dependent upon like you know trying to do a color change or whether you're not trying to do a color change, whether you're just trying to do a quick bounce in and out or not. All that said, what I've been playing with is a little bit different. Let me show you. So um, I'm trying to achieve something that I call the ice cream cone. Namely, as I wrap the poi around my head, my hand, excuse me, as such, I wind up in this position where I'm basically in control of the head. Another option for this would be if I wrapped it further out past my hand, I might have a little bit of extra tether, and the poi would be like just hanging a little bit loose. That's not what I'm looking for here. What I'm looking for here, boom, is to be able to take control of the head and move it around as I see fit. Now, to me, what's interesting about this is that it actually overlaps with something else I've been taking a look at and which I have been meaning to spend more time training on, which is traditional Maori style poi. Um, there's a lot of cases in which I've seen traditional Maori performers work with the poi kind of wrapped up in their hands and then unwrapping them to get to do other stuff. But essentially, this becomes something like a suspension for them. And it's interesting to me that there's this overlap between glow stringing technique and Maori technique. Or maybe I should call it traditional technique. I don't know. Um, but here's what I like about this. The reason that this stuck out to me in checking out videos of traditional Maori spinners is that this is a way that you can achieve something that is like the holy grail for me in poi dance, which is a suspension. So when you're playing around with traditional dance, you can do a thing where, boom, you strike a pose and you hold on to it for just a second, right? In most cases, dance doesn't just free flow endlessly. It finds positions that it wants to hang out in for a second. Now the problem is that when you are spinning poi, it's very, very hard to make a suspension work. For one thing, if you're like if the poi is spinning as you're doing this, then you have to keep the poi spinning in that position, and the movements that you have to put into your arms in order to do that kind of break the spell of the suspension. There's ways around this, of course. For instance, you can do things like point isolations, which I believe I did a live stream on that. You can also just do straight up stalls in order to find a suspension. But you notice how the suspension just like isn't quite perfect, how like the stall, boom, it happens, but there's still a little wiggle on the poi, right? And doing my thing, boom, there's my suspension. Moving at all. I know that this may seem obvious to a lot of people, but when I put two and two together and realized that you could use shotguns for this purpose, it absolutely blew my mind. It solved a problem that I have literally been working on for years. Well, I shouldn't say solve the problem, but it definitely got me closer to the thing that I've been trying to achieve there. Furthermore, you can actually use this as a tool in its own right. Let's say, for the sake of argument, that you're flowing out, you find this moment and you want to keep moving, but not necessarily have the poi moving. So you're making specific choices about when you want the poi to move and when you don't. What's more, you can have moments where your body is still engaging in moves that you're used to for poi, actually moving. It creates a really, really interesting effect to me to play around with those contrasts. Um, that I find kind of fascinating, which my mind went blank as I was saying that, and I'm going to try and find. Oh, yes. Um, so, a lot of you all who've watched my dance videos will know that I like to use plane changes and stalls to accent a beat. This is something that I get from watching G's old videos from way back in the late 2000s and early 2010s. Now, here's the thing, you can do the same thing with a shotgun. Like, if you imagine that, boom, chika, there's a beat going on here, boom, chika, boom, boom, chika. Guess what? I can use the end of the shotgun, the place where the poi stops moving, to accent the beat in the same way that I'm using these boom, chika, boom, boom, chika stalls to hit as well. It becomes like my style is like not very flowy, specifically because I'm so really, really like finding stalls and transition points and places where I can switch the directions that the poi are going. I once jokingly referred to my style as anti-flow because I feel like sometimes, like, when I look at, say, Mel or Katya Stakhanova and the ways that they spin, they really keep the poi going in such a way that it always feels kind of continuous and flowy. And that's just not how I spin. I spin in so much more percussive and staccato style. And there's nothing wrong with that. But having another tool in my toolbox for, boom, nailing those accents is really fun. I like it a lot. Um, so, how am I achieving the ice cream cone, you may ask? Well, this is going to be different depending upon the thickness of the rope and how long the rope is. I personally, like, my poi are usually the distance from my thumb joint to my shoulder joint. Um, And on thicker ropes such as these I think these are 3/8 inch rope that are on the Orb Poi Pros. I also shortened these because the length that they came in was a little bit too long for me. So for me, getting to the ice cream cone involves wrapping the tether twice around my hand as such. And again, when I refer to it as the ice cream cone, what I'm referring to is I get to this place where basically the head is sitting on top of my fist and it's in a relatively controlled place. Like I can shake my hand around and I can make it stop on a dime. Yeah, that's what I'm really looking for. Boom, right there. As opposed to, say, if I had a little bit left over here and I shook it around a little bit, it's gonna look a little bit wilder, right? Um, I have been doing this with other sets of poi that have thinner tethers, and what I've been finding for them is that it works better to have the entire tether draped across my palm like this before doing the wrap. Um, that's for thinner tethers. The thicker tethers, I think it works better with the handle and a conventional key grip before, boom, finding your way to the ice cream cone, right? So you can get the poi to stop when you're spinning the other direction. Like this isn't quite the ice cream cone. I'm like letting the poi kind of stall out along the top of my hand. Getting to the ice cream cone basically involves trying to find positions in which the poi is like spinning clockwise relative to your hand. Yeah. So if I've got both of my poi here spinning by my sides, I can wrap them both up into the ice cream cone fairly easy. Um, a way I've seen a lot of people do this is say like go into a crosser and wrap up to the ice cream cone position. Um, Another way you can do it is out of butterflies. A reverse butterfly, let's say you're kind of taking around a flower or what have you. You can always take that out and around out to the sides like that. What a great moment that is. Um, there's also some really cool, funky stuff you can do there. So, say you're playing around with like an anti-Brit or something like that, and take the ice cream cone off to one side and kind of break the shape a little bit, and then come out of it going the other way. I remember Yuta doing a performance back in the day where he played around with that very idea, and like in my mind, it didn't quite stick with me. But now I'm just like, oh wow, that's cool. One similar thing that's come out of playing around with this is taking it not across the bottom but across the side. So boom, when I get to the top, that's when it freezes. It just kind of like is left there hanging in space, and then when they come back to like that generates some tension in my mind, and I kind of like what gets produced out of that. Um, it does kind of hamstring what you're able to do though, because for instance, if you're playing around with anti-spin flowers, there is my right hand is going around my left hand going down around counterclockwise, and I cannot get to the ice cream cone from here. I can stop them both on the back sides of my hands, but I got to be real careful about what I do next because the likelihood that they'll fall off is pretty high. As opposed to if I'm doing it from, I think of this as being like the reverse uh, split time opposites anti-spin. So now my right hand is going counterclockwise relative to me, and boom, from here I can get to the ice cream cone. Excellent. And like actually, there's a variation I can do right here where I'm just like reaching off to the side, and I can kind of take it over and boom, expand out from there, which I think personally think looks really cool. Um, so I'm finding a lot of use for this as like an accent, as something that I can use to like hit a beat, strike a pose, or find my suspension as I'm dancing. There are plenty of examples of that in the video that I uploaded today, the one that is set to Gold Rush or Fool's Gold by Fits and the Tantrums. And spoilers, there's going to be more of that coming in my flow video next month. There were ideas that I wanted to drop in that video, but I hadn't had enough time to clean up to feel comfortable doing with it. So you can expect more of that to come. A little preview of that involves not just the getting into the ice cream cone, but getting back out of it. So for instance, like if I have my hands oriented in this way that I've got both of my poi and ice cream cones, how do I get them back out? Well, one option, and the geometry of this is actually kind of interesting because like basically I could come out of it in a butterfly, the poi kind of want to, both of the poi want to unwrap in the direction of the palm of the hand, right? So if you orient the palms in the same direction, you basically get the poi spinning in the same direction, right? If you orient the palms away from each other, they come out spinning in opposite directions. So play around with this and say, strike a pose where you have one poi kind of hanging out above the other and unwrap them out of the ice cream cone. And guess what? Makes a great transition into toroids because I've also been on a toroids kick lately. And to get back into the ice cream cone, all you have to do is switch which side of your body they're on, and you have that moment to wrap them back around the palm of your hand. So it's come out of the ice cream cone into your toroids, ice cream cone. Yeah? That's a lot of ice cream cones. It must be summer. It must be summer. How am I doing on time here? Cool. All right. Go ahead and summarize, and then we can switch over to Q&A here. I am already dying. I don't know if y'all can tell out there. Like I'm sweating quite profusely. I believe we got up into the 90s today, and again, I can't leave the air conditioner on as I'm doing this. Balls. Anywho, so to summarize, shotguns. It's a term that we get from glowstringing, and it basically involves wraps that happen around the hand that is connected to the prop, whether it be poi or a glow stick. And of course, traditionally, this is done in such a way that you have the option of switching into what's called a color switch, color change, excuse me, where you switch which end of the prop you're holding onto. I don't do that very often. What I am finding is helpful is getting into this position that I refer to as the ice cream cone, where I have complete control over the momentum of the prop, and I can do anything that I want with it and orient it any which way I choose. Like, whoop, split time, same direction. That's kind of cool. That's a great discovery. Boom, from here to um, the ice cream cone is super useful because it allows you to do things like, say, finding a suspension as you're dancing. It's also very useful for hitting accents in whatever music you happen to be listening to. That makes you find a way to, boom, make a moment really, really land. Um, they're also real great in that you can find the contrast between moving your body and not moving the poi versus, say, moving the poi and barely moving your body. Both of these are options. Finding the ice cream cone depends upon how thick your tethers are, how long your tethers are. I am finding with 3/8 inch tethers and with the poi, I want to say my poi are like 23 inches long. Um, Going from the key grip to wrapping the tether around my hand twice, I can get to the ice cream cone, where again, it's sitting on top of my fist and there's enough tension on the tether. I can move this as much as I want to. I can be like one of those bell ringers and boom, the poi stops exactly where I want it to. I'm in complete control of what it is doing. Yeah. Um, yeah, and I want to keep playing around with this. Unfortunately, getting to the ice cream cone as it is right now is limited to working in spaces where I can wrap the poi around my hand backwards rather than going around the palm side. I can still stop it from palm side, but I don't quite have as much control here as I would like. I don't get the same kind of control that I do in the ice cream cone. But I'm working on it, and maybe I will have more of that to show next month when I do my next live stream. So cool. Let's switch over into some Q&A there, friends. Yeah, now you can see I am just sweating buckets over here. Goodness. Um, so let's open it up to Q&A. First and foremost, another thank you to the friends of the, or They're one of the friends of the channel. Thank you to UltraPoi. They're the sponsor of Tech Tips, my monthly live stream. They're also the maker of these amazing LED poi here. These are, of course, my Orb Poi Pros. They're awesome. You should go check them out over on ultrapoi.com. My promo code there is DrexFactor with a 0 instead of an O. Please go show them some love because they're the reason that this live stream show exists. Thank you once again to UltraPoi. We're going to move things into Q&A. Any question you can think of, I will answer them in the order that they come in, with one exception. Y'all may be seeing that there's a little button at the bottom of the chat that's a square with a $ in it. That is the super chat function. You can get your question bumped up in the queue if you send a super chat my way. It's basically like tipping the channel. All that money comes directly to me. So helps out the channel. I'd appreciate it. I will answer your question either way, but I bump it to the top of the queue if you send me a super chat. So thanks in advance. I'm going to start digging into the stuff that people have been saying while I've been teaching that lesson. While I'm doing that, please send me your questions. Yeah? We're going to go until just after 8 o'clock. I believe I got on at like 3 or 4 minutes past the hour, so that's what time we'll get off to. Cool. So I'm looking through the chat from lesson. Julian Danskin says, "Oh my God, I've been doing this without knowing what it is called. It's called shotguns. I didn't know what it was called either." There was a point, like I want to say it's like 8 or 9 years ago, when I started playing around with shotguns and had no idea what the name of it was either. Oh Lord! Hey Siri, stop playing. It is sometimes helpful to unplug your smart speaker before you do a live stream. Whoops. Anyhow, I didn't know what they were called at first either, much less knowing that it was an old glow stringing trick. So, yeah, cool for me to learn as well. I'm glad I got to pass that on. Says, I love using them with tosses. That's a great idea too. Yeah. Oh, I'm going to play with that now. That's a fantastic idea. A way of going from a lot of movement to absolutely none very quickly. Like that. I like that. Pun says, very cool. Lulzist says, love the insights. I'm so glad to hear that. Pun says, oh, that's a good one. I have no idea what that was in reference to, but I'm glad it was a good one. Lulzist says, snow cones. Yeah, you can think of it as a snow cone too, especially if you're melting from the heat, as I am here. There's no bad answer in terms of what we call that there. Pun can definitely tell. Says, one for the Q&A. I feel like I need to become more flexible for certain tricks, mostly for between the legs. Any tips on that? I started doing yoga already. Yeah, I'm actually working on that myself, but for very, very different reasons. My reasons are more related to just like dance stuff. But yeah, from what I gather, like you want to try and stretch every day, pick stretches that very specifically target areas that you're having trouble with. I am trying to get to doing the splits myself, and so I'm doing a lot of hamstring stretches. Um, there's a couple muscles that I have around my hips that have very, very stubbornly refused to kind of open up. My hamstrings by this point are remarkably are well, I shouldn't say remarkably. They're more flexible than I would expect for a 42-year-old man. But one of the muscles that I've been having a really, really hard time finding ways of stretching out is my iliopsoas muscle. That's a muscle that basically connects at your lower back and goes down through your thigh, and it's one of your hip flexor muscles. It's one of the muscles that you use when you bring your legs towards your chest. And from a lifetime of sitting in front of a computer, my iliopsoas muscle shortened up a lot. In fact, when I first started learning how to dance, I used to get horrible back pain because that iliopsoas muscle was getting used for the first time. and it was not used to it. It's more used to being used now, but it is unfortunately um, it's still shorter than I would like it to be, and I get anterior pelvic tilt because of that. And one of my missions for stretching has been to stretch that out, which I just recently found an amazing stretch for it that like targets the iliopsoas muscle so specifically that every time I do it, I swear to God, I can see stars. It's like it's so intense. But yeah, stretch every day. Make sure that you're targeting stretches that are going to do what you want them to do. And sometimes it takes a little bit of trial and error to figure out what muscle it is you need to stretch out in order to achieve your objectives. Um, do bear in mind too that with under the leg stuff, it's not purely down to flexibility. A big part of it is also you have to learn the timing and spacing of letting the poi pass between your legs at specific points while your legs are moving back and forth. I've seen people who are really, really good at it, and like what it really comes down to is timing and placement as much as flexibility. So be sure to drill both. Nick Woolsey has an excellent video on drilling under the leg stuff that involves thinking of it as like opening and shutting a door. That was what finally made it click for me. So, yes, that is that would be my recommendation for that. Yoga's great for this too. And maybe like I would maybe have a conversation with your yoga teacher and specifically say what you're trying to achieve, like the positions that you're trying to get to. And your yoga teacher will probably have some advice for you on what stretches are going to work best for you. So good luck with that. Oh, Lulzist also said maybe Drex should get an ice cream cone. Right? Ice cream cone would be great right now. I would be all about that life. Piro says, hello, I just come to say thank you for all the videos as need go to sleep. Greeting from UK. Greeting from Washington, D.C. in the United States. I'm glad that you are enjoying all the videos and sleep well. Lulzist asks, how did you learn all your moves? Do you recommend watching videos or just playing around or both? Definitely both. So there's as many ways that I've learned moves as there are different moves. Like, um, I did it early in my career is very, very different from the way that I do it now. Very, very early in my career, there was absolutely nothing that I learned on my own. It was all people in Denver, Colorado, where I was living at the time. They could show me tricks. Um, and then it was Nick Woolsey had started posting tutorials on YouTube, and I was following those. Um, I don't think things changed significantly for me until like I moved away from Colorado and moved to New York City. And that was when I started seeing people that I didn't know doing stuff that I didn't understand. And I would like, go up to them and be like, hey, what is that thing? How are you doing that? And later on, what I would do is I'd take video because um, lots of people are really, really good at spinning poi and they're not very good at teaching other people how to do it. So in a lot of cases, when I would see people spinning and they were doing stuff that I thought was really cool, I would whip out my video camera, I would record it, and I would kind of take it home and try and work out from the video how they were doing what they were doing. Um, a lot of what I've learned has also been my own explorations. In a lot of cases, it's a thing where, like, say, of this the videos on 1.5s that I uploaded last year, or as I prefer to think of them, 3-to-1 caps. Um, what that came out of, honestly, was like someone, I want to say it was a South African spinner by the name of, she's smoking stardust on Instagram. She replied to a tutorial that I had posted about doing butterfly 1.5s. And something that she said like clicked for me in a weird way, where I'm just like, oh, are basically this particular move that is done with like a flattened hand path. So like having played around with linear isolations and linear extensions, I knew that you could transform different patterns by going from a linear hand path to a round hand path. You just like basically blow it up like a balloon. And I was like, hey, what on earth happens to a 1.5 when you blow up the hand path, when you turn it into a full circle? And that sent me down months worth of rabbit holes. And in the process of that, I discovered patterns that, to my knowledge, nobody else has ever done with poi, as well as realizing that a lot of patterns that I did already know turned out to be related to 1.5s. It just happened to be that like we hadn't thought of them as being transformations of a hand path before. And once I did, all of a sudden, it became clear to me that there was this entire family of moves that we didn't realize was a family up until then. So the short answer is it's a lot of things. I will also say there have been moments where I like a lot of my practice and like I'll go back and I'll watch the video and there'll be moments where I see something that's like, oh, that looked really cool and I didn't intend it to, or I'll be like, huh, if I did this or this differently right there, something different would pop out of that. So that's also become a way that I learn new tricks. So honestly, it happens so many different ways. It happens being inspired by other people. That still happens to this day. Um, it happens. Learn things by checking out other people's online tutorials. The tutorial that Anton from Russia posted, where he was playing around with that kind of interesting body tracer. Definitely, I cribbed from that in figuring out how to do them myself. And just playing around, developing systems for thinking about spinning, it will help reveal patterns that I didn't know existed before that. And also, too, sometimes you just have happy accidents and you see something that you didn't realize was special, and then you have an opportunity to go back and play with it. So yeah, spoilers, record all your practice sessions. You never know when you're going to do something cool and you're going to want to go back and find it. So yeah, it's a very, very, very long answer to that question. I hope you don't mind. But yes, I do recommend watching videos and I also recommend playing around. We can and should have both, all the above. There's no wrong answer there. Do all of it. Inspiration doesn't come in just one form. Yeah. Says, I've heard them called gunslingers too. Gunslingers are something different. This is very important. I'm going to switch back to full body here for a second because I want to reinforce this point. Balls. And unfortunately, I forgot to charge these, so the head went out. I hope you don't mind. Okay, so shotgun involves wrapping the poi around the hand that is attached to it, and either you bounce the poi back out or you freeze it in the ice cream cone as such. Now, gunslingers are different. Gunslingers involve shifting your grip, so you're gripping the midpoint of the tether. And then, functionally, you turn the poi into a meteor. It's a very, very short meteor, but it's still a meteor. With that, you can do all the normal meteor stuff from weaves to spiral wraps. Saying that word is the bane of my existence whenever I write it into a script because it always comes out as spiral wrap when I try and like say it. Every single time, it takes me at least 4 to 5 takes to get away from spiral wrap to spiral wrap. Yeah, anyway, story for another time. And of course, you can do gunslinger flowers, which are a personal favorite. But gunslingers grip along the poi tether. Shotguns are a really quick wrap and bounce from the hand or getting to the ice cream cone grip. But they're two different things. The names certainly overlap. I don't know, it might be a thing like, Superman's and Fantastic Fours where there's just this family of tricks that have similar ideas and for some reason are given really similar names. I don't know. I haven't dug deep enough into the history of it, but they are separate. I don't know if if glowstringers consider there to be like an umbrella. I don't know if glowstringers consider there to be an umbrella term for all of these tether manipulation tricks, but maybe there is. I will try digging more and seeing if I can find an answer to that. Ended. Cool, cool. Oh, there we go. Alex Cabello says, hola, hola, ¿cómo está? Saludos desde México. Saludos desde Washington, D.C. Thanks for joining us tonight. Nice to meet you. Victoria Weiss says, question, I have really bad rhythm. Do you have any tips for me to keep in sync? Yes, I'm a horrible dancer. No worries. I used to be a horrible dancer too. I went and took dance lessons. I took years of modern dance, a little bit of jazz, a little bit of hip hop, mainly modern dance, and it helped out immensely. Um, I will tell you that going and taking dance classes is the single hardest thing I have done in my entire adult life. With maybe, well, no, actually, there's an exception to that. Up until recently, it was the hardest thing I had done in my adult life. Um, so, yeah. Um, Honestly, I'd recommend going and taking dance lessons. There's nothing like learning from a professional, and there is such a huge and detailed pedagogy out there for how to teach dance at this point. It's kind of silly for us to try and reinvent the wheel. There's bound to be a dance studio somewhere close to where you live. Find out what they're teaching, and I mean, ballet is really, really rough if you have absolutely no background for it. But modern dance is good. Hip hop is really good. Like hip hop will work on any body type. It's great. But yeah, go and take dance lessons. I There's a million other things I could recommend, but like going and taking dance lessons is going to help more than anything else by an enormous margin. And here's the thing, like every single type of dance will teach you how to move to a beat, regardless of what that style of dance is. There's no wrong answer here. So go and take some dance lessons. And I feel you. I had bad rhythm too. Um, Ironically enough, so like I also play bass, and for some reason, I was always really really good with rhythm for playing bass. But when it came time to like actually move the rest of my body to a beat, I had a really hard time with it. Took a long time. Took a long time. Um, I will warn you in advance that I was taking dance classes for close to 4 months before I started seeing myself like getting the pieces together and being like, okay, this is starting to make at least a little bit of sense. But before that, I just felt absolutely lost. Those first 4 months were rough, but stick with it. It's so worth it. Like I honestly was just thinking this the other day. I'm kind of tempted to go back and try and find somebody who's teaching modern dance right now because I kind of miss taking class. Be good to get back into shape. But yeah, that's my advice. That's my advice. Go take formal dance classes because they know what they're talking about. They'll be able to help you out for sure. Um, Daryl Smith asks, do you plan on making more content on the 3D spectrum of poi? I totally watched that, by the way. There's not much info out there. Yes. In fact, the response to my video on like doing an overview of toroids and why they kind of fell out of favor, the response to that was so good that I'm going to be making more videos on toroids. So there's definitely more 3D stuff coming. Um, Maybe as early as next month. I don't know. I have I have a couple scripts that are higher in the queue than that, but depending upon what I'm feeling, I might push things around a little bit. But definitely by August there will be another video on toroids. So keep a lookout. Keep an eye out for that. Yes, there's definitely more 3D stuff coming your way for sure. I love spinning poi and I dance on the offbeat. There's nothing wrong with dancing on the offbeat. If you're dancing to jazz, you're supposed to be dancing on the offbeat. Like they hate it when you when you do things on the downbeat. They want you on the upbeat. They don't want you on the 1, 2, 3, 4. They want you on the 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, they want that kind of hop to it. Yeah. Jillian Danskin, is it possible to do iso pop trick with poi? I know how to do it with a hula hoop, but trying to figure out how it translates to poi. The word for it in poi is cat eye. Yes, it is absolutely possible with poi. Let me show you. I'll show you with a hoop first, so that um, so an isopop, for those of you out there who are not familiar with this terminology, basically takes you through four positions. One in which you basically have the hoop around your body center, and your hand is reaching out to your non-native side. It drops down your center line, and your hand basically like sits down about hip level. You come up with your hand on native side, and still you're basically encircling your body center. And I can't go up all the way because my ceilings are too low, but you wind up with the hoop going straight up along your body center and your hand holding it. Yeah. So altogether, it basically looks like this. It's called an iso pop basically because the hoop pops back and forth out of an isolated position. It kind of makes more sense if I do it a horizontal iso pop, like so, where you go from an isolation to popping out from it. This is a really, really popular thing to do with hoops, or at least it used to be that you go back and forth between that isolation and the iso pop, and that really makes it pop, hence the name. Um, the momentum works differently with poi, but yes, you can still do it. With poi, it's called a cat eye, and technically speaking, you can start it from like an isolation and then boom, go out to a full thing. Um, Cat eye as a term has a long and storied history that I will not go into right now, but suffice it to say, your hand is moving around the same hand path that it would if it were performing in isolation. In fact, a very, very popular thing to do with this is a hybrid wherein you're performing both an isolation and a cat eye at the same time. Alien John was famous for doing this back in the day, and I have definitely done it to death myself. You can also do this with a horizontal cat eye too. I just uploaded a tutorial on how to do it to Instagram last week. But yeah, essentially what it is you're moving through four positions. On the sides, you want to keep the poi head and handle basically equidistant from your body center. You reach both your poi and hand up along your center line, distance along your center, and they drop down your center line. So, boom, like so. And this produces, so hoop isopops basically look like the hoop is just sliding back and forth in a slot, whereas cat eyes with poi, um, the end result is a very, very long and narrow ellipse. That was the entire point of creating cat eyes back in the day, was to create ellipses with poi. So cat eye is an example of that. And I have a tutorial on my channel of how to execute both vertical and horizontal cat eyes, if you want to go check that out. Hope that was helpful. Um, I've seen you asking that question in a couple groups now, so I hope that finally answered that question. Nancy Lazarick at that right says early happy birthday. Thank you. Yeah, for those of you who are just tuning in, this is why the live stream's happening on Wednesday this month. Is that I I'm turning 42 tomorrow, so yeah. The delightful woman that I have been seeing is treating me to a concert on Friday night for my birthday. So yeah, it's had a prior engagement, so the live stream had to move. I hope you all don't mind. Thank you for the happy birthday wishes. Nancy has been struggling with learning spiral wraps. My spiral wraps, right? My problem is when unwrapping, the poise stay together instead of being opposite. Interesting. Suggestions. Thank you for all that you do. Yeah. So I'm going to overpronounce that now every single time. Um, so getting out of them, I think I can see how that might happen because, say, like if you try and take them off at the same time, there, like as a like say if you're bouncing them off the top of you, I can see them falling into sync right there. Um, the key to getting out of spiral wraps is the twist. Uh, Come on, baby, do the twist. Now, so essentially, what you're looking to do is there's a little flick that you got to do with your wrist in order to get them both moving again. And I'm trying to see if I can make them go out at the same time with the flick. I think if one of them runs out of momentum, that's when that becomes likely. So here's how to avoid that happening. As you're doing the flick, you want to move your hands in the direction that you want the poi to go in, both of them. So like, um, I can't, I don't know if you can tell this as you're watching, but I'm actually like moving my hands. So like, as I'm unwrapping and having the poi kind of twisting over to my left here, my hands are also moving to the left with them. And so watch me move over with them there and they move slightly over to the right. I'm really exaggerating the movement right now. If I deliberately not exaggerate the movement, you can still see it a little bit. Like, see how I'm moving my hands just a wee bit to the side that I want to unwrap to? That's part of how I'm maintaining that momentum. The other part is you really, really have to keep very, very close attention to the timing of the poise they wrap around and placement too. You basically want to be in a position where you've got the tethers tightly wrapped around your hands and you have control of at least one of the heads. What I mean by control? Well, basically, it's at rest in a position where you have complete control over it. So the one that's hanging right now, I do not have complete control over, but the one that is sitting on top of my hands, I do have complete control over. So that's the one that actually, if you look closely, when I snap, is the one that initiates the move back to opening up. The momentum I'm imparting from my hands there is getting transferred directly to it. The poi that's just kind of hanging there is having its movement initiated simply by having me pull on the tether back to the other direction. But the one that I have control over, that's the one that is actually like, boom, moving out. Now, you'll notice that I'm doing all of this with my hands coming together in what I call the turtle position. Good with doing it in the prayer position. It's this, oh, goodness. In theory, it's the same kind of thing where you want to flick your hands, and that's what's going to get you out of there. So, work to master or gain fluency, I should say, in doing the flick. The flick is how you exit and make it look pretty. Thank you for the advice. You're so welcome. Pun says, just so you know, your mic is going quiet in between pauses and will miss the first few words when you start speaking again. Drat. Okay, well, I don't think I'm going to fix that during this live stream, but I'll keep an eye on it for next time. Thanks for letting me know. About recording other poi spinners to learn techniques. Yeah, I mean, try and get consent when you do this because there are some people that like don't want to be recorded for whatever reason. Sometimes it can be the thing that you come up to them afterwards and you're like, hey, so I did this thing. How do you feel about that? And if they say, I'd prefer that you delete that video, then delete that video. Um, And some people are cool with you holding on to video for your own purposes. It's unfortunately become common for people to record video of others, especially at fire festivals, and then just post it online afterwards, which I had a big part in normalizing that, and I really regret it. Um, but yeah, try and get consent where possible for that. Don't just that you are entitled to somebody else's space. Definitely. Um, Fun. They even called them shotguns on glowstringing.com even back in '04. Interesting. Um, Ras Christofari? Do you use infinity spirals often? Are there combo spins or transitions that you use while getting to or while during or to get into slash out of them? Um, so right now is infinite spiral wraps. Spiral wraps. No, so infinite spiral wraps are what the term for this in my head is it's a bookmark trick. What do I mean by bookmark trick? Well, so there's an entire philosophy of performance that comes from the circus and sideshow world that says that you basically structure performances, and I don't think this is the term that's used there. It's just the term that I use for it. It's basically that you structure performances to try and get to different bookmarks. Like there is a trick that is supposed to be a climax for a part of your act. This is like you're like this is the money moment. This is the moment that people clap for you and everything, and you're looking for their adulation. In most cases, you have to build up to those tricks, and they're not very easy to transition in or out of. That's kind of the point of them. They're supposed to, like, because here's the thing: is when it's easy to transition into something, it's easy for people to miss that you did the transition. Um, so bookmark tricks are spectacular. They are also a pain in the butt to get to, and infinite spiral wraps, in my mind, are a bookmark trick. I have not done them in ages, but I will do one for you all tonight. So, infinite spiral wraps involve basically sandwiching the tethers between your arms. And, whoops, I did that wrong. So, what it does is it shortens up the length of the tether to make it so that you can switch back and forth in your spiral wraps very quickly. There we go. Again, they're a pain in the butt to get into, and they're not particularly dignified to get back out of. I almost never use them specifically because they're such a pain in the butt to get into and out of. I know lots of people from like a decade ago who use them, but specifically use them to anchor and act around. Like using an infinite spiral wrap would be, generally speaking, the climax of their act because it goes fast, it's really cool looking, and it's an absolute bear to get back out of and get to anything else. So you want to put it at the end of an act. Um, so Short answer is no. I do not know any combos or transitions for using them. Maybe I will work on that and see if I can come up with something though. There's a lot of challenges there because I can't think of another poi trick that involves capturing a portion of the tether between your hands like that. Fake out of like shotguns to get there, but yeah, I don't know. Um, I'll get back to you on that one. But good question. Um, maybe I'll work on that. I didn't know that isopop is the same as cat eyes. Yeah, different prop, different name. I will definitely check out your tutorials. Hallelujah. Ras Christofari says, same, new to hoop and stoked on how those interplay between. Yeah, um, for a very brief time, I was somewhat renowned in the local hoop community because I could do those tricks. Like I'd already learned them on poi, and to all the local hoopers, it looked like absolute sorcery. So they're just like, "Teach me your ways, Drex." I'm like, I only know how to do three things with hoop, all right, but they all thought I was really good at hoop because I could do those tricks. Um, so yeah, now I think they're more common and they've kind of lost their mystique, unfortunately. Hey, here we are. Um, One arm spiral wrap, one handed, yes. I mostly do them for behind the back wraps, unless going infinities, and then two hand turtle for easy transition. Okay, yeah, I've seen people that'll do the behind the back spiral. So that combines together two things I don't like to do, which I really, really, really don't like doing behind the back stuff. My arms are not terribly flexible, so doing behind the back stuff, like it's not just uncomfortable, it kind of hurts. But yes, I've seen plenty of people that do spiral wraps from a behind the back spot, and it looks cool. Sure does. Um, so yes, that sounds awesome. I'm sure it looks really, really cool. Nancy Lazarek says, great advice. Thank you so much. You're welcome. Vetty says, hello, Drex. I'm watching your live on my way for poi training, and it's 2 a.m. in my country. Which, did you already chime in? What country are you in? 2 a.m. Goodness, that is some dedication right there. Just turn it on. Raz Christofari says, I turned 32 this week. Well, happy birthday. And I see you're wishing me a happy birthday as well. Um, yeah, 42. Secret to life, the universe, and everything, right? Uh, so we'll see if some incredible life wisdom comes to me in the next few days. I have a suspicion that it'll just be a normal Thursday, but we'll see. Ras Christofari asks, also had some speech therapy while in elementary school for R's and S's, relatable, and infinities are kind of an anchor lock point in place for long wiggling dance, although I feel crosser huggy spins work with. Crosser huggy. Huggies are the word for crossers in every other part of the world, or I think just like in Europe and Australia. But yeah, I suppose you could do it off of a crosser now that you mention it. Moment in there to get the top poi in between the hands, but yeah, I can see how that would work. Mhm. Thank you, Vetty. Birthday week, yes, cool. So it is now 7 past the hour, which means I should start to wrap things up here. I really appreciate everybody tuning in tonight and coming in with your great questions here. Once again, I want to put out a huge thank you to UltraPoi for sponsoring this live stream lesson. I hope you all have enjoyed it. I hope you all appreciate UltraPoi making these possible. You can show your appreciation there by grabbing a set of these poi for yourself. These are orb poi, LED contact poi, or they're orb poi pros, excuse me. Over at ultrapoi.com, promo code is DrexFactor with a 0 instead of an O. That gets you a discount on your order and it helps out the channel. So please do that. Thank you. And we'll be returning next month to my usual time slot of the last Friday evening of the month. Although turnout was pretty decent tonight, maybe I should consider keeping it on a weekday. I don't know. Leave me your votes for whether this should be the last Friday or the last Wednesday of the month down in the chat. Love to hear your thoughts. Barry says, yeah, and yes, have awesome ones. One and all sorts. For me, I learned huggies are crossers where the arms are fully folded. Um, I more often hear those referred to as straight jackets, at least here in the United States. We don't have a trick that we call huggies here in the United States. What we call what Europe and Australia calls crossers is what we call meltdowns here in the United States. We don't have a trick that gets called huggies. So yeah, it's just a language thing. It's the same as like petrol versus gas or lift versus elevator. It's just regional stuff. Um, Pun says, thanks for all your hard work and huge contributions to poi spinners the world over. My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you for tuning in tonight, Crossers. Caught a few of this, Ross Christopher again. Caught a few of some of these. Live, love them. Thank you. And yes, either day works for me. Great. Good to hear it. Yeah, all right. So thank you all for tuning in. Have yourselves a great night, and I will catch you next month for my next live stream session. Thank you all so much for joining me tonight, and have yourselves a great evening. Hope it is cooler where all you happen to be. Yeah, awesome. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you soon. Peace.